What skeleton in the closet were you never supposed to find out? The dusty shoebox fell from my hands, spilling its contents across my grandmother's attic floor like confetti made of lies. 23 letters, bound with a rubber band that snapped the moment I touched it, scattered around my knees as I knelt there in the stifling August heat. I shouldn't have been snooping. Grandma Rose had only been gone 2 weeks, and here I was, rifling through her belongings like some vulture. But Uncle Mike had insisted we clean out the house quickly, something about property taxes and medical bills eating into the estate. His cancer treatments were expensive. He'd reminded me again just yesterday when I'd sent him another $800 for his chemotherapy sessions. The first letter I picked up was addressed to Rose Patterson, my grandmother, in handwriting I recognized immediately. Uncle Mike's distinctive scrawl, the same writing that had signed birthday cards and permission slips throughout my childhood after my parents died in that car accident when I was 15. Rose. Stop asking questions about Sarah's money. The girl doesn't need to know about the real estate sale proceeds yet. She's got enough on her plate with college, and frankly, she trusts me completely. Why complicate things? The Riverside property sale netted $340,000 after fees, more than enough to secure both our futures. Sarah can learn about her inheritance when she's older and more financially responsible. Mike. March 15, 2019. My hand started shaking. Riverside property? What inheritance? I grabbed another letter, dated 6 months later. Rose. The casino situation is temporary. I hit a bad streak, but I'm working with people who know the system. Sarah's monthly contributions are helping, and she doesn't suspect anything about the medical bills. Doc Morrison agreed to keep up appearances for the family visits. $500 cash for each consultation is a bargain for what we need. You worry too much about the girl finding out. She's too trusting, too grateful for everything I did raising her. That loyalty is worth its weight in gold. Mike. The attic suddenly felt like it was closing in on me. Doc Morrison? I'd sat in that waiting room dozens of times, holding Uncle Mike's hand before his treatments, bringing him ginger ale for his nausea, researching clinical trials online at 2 a.m. because I was terrified of losing the only family I had left. I tore open another envelope, this one more recent. Rose. Melissa's pregnant again. Third kid means I need the house in Burlington to be bigger. Sarah's been good for $1,200 monthly, sometimes more when I really sell the sick act. The inheritance paperwork you're worried about is already handled. I've got power of attorney, remember? What Sarah doesn't know won't hurt her. Besides, after everything I sacrificed raising her, I've earned this. You want to tell her the truth? Fine. But remember who's been taking care of business while you've been playing the doting grandmother. Mike. January 8, 2024. Melissa. A third kid. Burlington house. I sat there surrounded by evidence of a decade-long con, perpetrated by the man who'd walked me down the aisle at my cousin's wedding just last month. The man I'd called every Sunday for 13 years. The man who was supposed to be celebrating his cancer-free diagnosis at a family party this Saturday, a party I'd organized and paid for because I was so grateful he'd survived. My phone buzzed. A text from Uncle Mike. Hey sweetheart, can you spot me $400 for follow-up blood work? The doctors want to be extra careful. Love you. I stared at the message, then at the letters scattered around me like evidence at a crime scene. Love you too, Uncle Mike. We'll see about that. I spent the next 3 hours in that sweltering attic, reading every single letter twice. By the time I climbed down the creaky ladder, I had a timeline that made my stomach churn and a migraine that felt like someone was driving railroad spikes through my skull. Uncle Mike hadn't just stolen my inheritance, he'd orchestrated an elaborate fraud that involved multiple people. Dr. Morrison, who I'd trusted with my own annual checkups. Melissa Chen, who according to a 2018 letter was a blackjack dealer he'd met at Mohegan Sun and apparently married in some secret ceremony. And most devastatingly, my own grandmother had known about at least some of it. The final letter in the pile was different, older, written in Grandma Rose's shaky handwriting and addressed to me. My dearest Sarah. If you're reading this, then I'm gone and you found what I should have shown you years ago. I was a coward. Mike convinced me you were too fragile, too dependent on him to handle the truth about your parents' life insurance and the property they left you. By the time I realized how deep his lies went, I was afraid of losing you both. The Riverside property sale was supposed to be your nest egg, $340,000 that should have gone towards your future, not his gambling debts. I kept these letters as insurance, hoping I'd find the courage to tell you myself. I pray you can forgive a foolish old woman who loved you too much to break your heart. The safety deposit box key is taped under my jewelry chest. Box 447 at First National. Everything you need to prove what he's done is there. All my love. Grandma Rose. I found the key exactly where she said it would be, a small brass thing that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds in my palm. Outside, the August sun was setting, painting the sky the color of a fresh bruise. I sat in my car in the bank parking lot until 9 p.m., staring at that key and thinking about the last conversation I'd had with Grandma Rose. She'd been in the hospital, weak from the stroke, and she'd grabbed my hand with surprising strength. Sarah, honey, there's something about Mike, but then he'd walked into the room with flowers and that easy smile, and she'd gone quiet, shrinking back into her pillows like a scared child. I thought she was just confused from the medication. My phone rang. Uncle Mike. Hey, sweetheart. How's the house cleaning going? Don't wear yourself out over there. His voice was warm, concerned, the same tone he'd used when teaching me to drive, when I'd called him crying after my first breakup, when I'd gotten food poisoning sophomore year of college and he'd driven 3 hours to bring me soup. It's going fine, I managed. Just going through some old papers. Nothing too important, I hope. You know how Rose was about keeping every receipt and old letter. Sentimental pack rat. He chuckled, and I could hear voices in the background. Children laughing. Listen, about that $400 for blood work. Uncle Mike? I interrupted. Yeah, hon? How's Melissa doing? The silence stretched for exactly 7 seconds. I counted. I'm sorry, who? Melissa. And the kids. Sarah, honey, are you feeling all right? You sound stressed. Maybe you should take a break from all that dusty old. I hung up. Then I drove to First National Bank and sat in the parking lot until morning, that brass key burning a hole in my pocket, waiting for them to open so I could see just how deep this rabbit hole really went. The cancer-free celebration was in 5 days. I was going to make sure it was a party none of us would ever forget. The safety deposit box opened with a metallic click that echoed through the sterile bank vault like a gunshot. Inside, manila folders were stacked with the precision of a woman who'd spent 40 years as a bookkeeper. Grandma Rose hadn't just kept evidence, she'd organized it like she was building a federal case. The first folder contained photocopies of documents I'd never seen before. My parents' life insurance policies, each worth $150,000. The deed to the Riverside property, clearly listing me as the beneficiary upon reaching age 25, an age I'd passed 3 years ago without anyone mentioning I owned lakefront real estate. Bank statements showing the $340,000 deposit from the property sale, followed by a series of withdrawals that coincided perfectly with Uncle Mike's medical expenses. But it was the second folder that made my blood run cold. Marriage certificate, Michael James Patterson and Melissa Chen, dated June 14, 2017. Las Vegas, Nevada. Birth certificates, Tyler Chen Patterson, born March 2018. Emma Chen Patterson, born November 2019. And a mortgage application for 47, Birchwood Lane, Burlington, Vermont, listing Mike's income as $85,000 annually, nearly double what he'd claimed when borrowing money from me for rent assistance just last winter. I photographed everything with shaking hands, the fluorescent lights making the documents look clinical and damning. A bank employee knocked on the vault door. Everything all right, miss? Just fine, I called back, my voice surprisingly steady. The third folder contained printed emails between Mike and someone named David Kowalski, emails that made me want to throw up right there on the polished marble floor. Mike. Asterisk, the niece situation is golden. Sarah's got a steady job now, and from what you told me about her personality, she's not going to question medical bills. My cousin Jimmy ran the same game with his nephew for 2 years before the kid got suspicious. Key is to keep the amounts reasonable and the guilt heavy. How much you pulling monthly? Asterisk. Dave. Asterisk, usually between $800 to $1,200. Sometimes more if I really sell the pain angle. Showed her some fake test results last month, thanks for the Photoshop help, and she immediately offered an extra $500 for experimental treatment. It's almost too easy. The girl would give me her kidney if I asked. Sometimes I feel bad, but then I remember how much I gave up raising her when her parents died. I deserve this, asterisk. Mike. The emails went on for pages. A systematic discussion of manipulation techniques, fake symptoms, and ways to maximize sympathy donations. There were references to other people running similar cons, a whole network of fraudsters sharing strategies like some twisted support group. But the worst email was dated just 2 weeks ago. Dave. Asterisk, Rose passed, and Sarah's handling the estate. Getting nervous about the letters Rose kept threatening me with. The old bat always was too sentimental for her own good. If Sarah finds anything, I might need to accelerate the timeline. Melissa's been pressuring me to come clean and just disappear. We could take the kids and start over somewhere. Mexico, maybe. Cost of living is cheap, and they don't ask too many questions if you've got cash, asterisk. Mike. Mexico. He was planning to run. My phone vibrated with a text, asterisk, Sarah, still need that $400. Doctor's office is getting pushy about payment. You know how much I hate asking you for help, asterisk. I stared at the message, then at the photos of his real family smiling on a beach somewhere. His son Tyler had Mike's distinctive chin. His daughter Emma was wearing a tiny Red Sox jersey. They looked happy. They looked like the family I thought I had. Another text came through, asterisk, also, been thinking about the house cleaning. Maybe I should come help you finish up this weekend? Don't want you going through all that old stuff alone, asterisk. He was coming to cover his tracks. To find and destroy whatever evidence Grandma Rose had left behind. I closed the safety deposit box and walked out of the bank into the bright Tuesday morning, feeling like I was moving through water. 3 days until his cancer-free party. 3 days to decide how to destroy the only family I'd ever known. But first, I had a trip to make to Burlington, Vermont. It was time to meet Melissa. The GPS led me through Burlington's tree-lined streets to a neighborhood that screamed comfortable middle class, the kind of place I dreamed of affording someday. 47, Birchwood Lane was a blue colonial with white shutters, a swing set in the backyard, and a minivan in the driveway with soccer ball decals on the rear window. I sat in my Honda across the street for 20 minutes, watching a woman who had to be Melissa chase a toddler around the front yard while an older boy kicked a ball against the garage door. She was petite, Asian, probably early 30s, wearing yoga pants and a faded Patriots t-shirt. She looked nothing like the home-wrecking casino dealer I'd imagined. She looked like me, actually. Like someone trying her best to hold everything together. The boy, Tyler, according to the birth certificate, had Mike's laugh. I could hear it from 50 feet away, and it hit me like a physical blow. This kid had gotten bedtime stories and birthday parties and bike riding lessons. He'd gotten the version of Uncle Mike I thought was exclusively mine. My phone rang. Mom's ringtone. I programmed it years ago as a joke, since Mike was the closest thing to a parent I'd had since 15. The irony felt like swallowing glass. Hey sweetheart, just wanted to confirm you got my messages about the blood work money. The office called again. I watched Melissa scoop up the toddler, Emma, and spin her around. Emma shrieked with delight. Actually, Uncle Mike, I'm glad you called. I'm in Burlington right now. Complete silence. Then, Burlington? What, why would you be in Burlington? Visiting some friends. Nice town. Great family neighborhoods. I'm looking at this beautiful colonial on Birchwood Lane right now. Through my windshield, I saw Melissa's phone ring. She answered it, still holding Emma on her hip. Even from across the street, I could see her expression change. Tyler stopped kicking the ball. Sarah. Mike's voice had dropped an octave. What exactly do you think you're doing? Getting to know my extended family. You never mentioned Melissa and the kids. That seems like an oversight. Melissa was staring directly at my car now, phone pressed to her ear. She said something to Tyler, who immediately grabbed his ball and ran inside. Smart kid. Listen to me very carefully, Mike said, and for the first time in 13 years, he sounded nothing like the man who'd raised me. I don't know what you think you've found, but $340,000, I interrupted. That's what I found. Plus some very interesting emails between you and Dave Kowalski about manipulation techniques. Plus marriage certificates. Plus the fact that Dr. Morrison has never treated you for cancer. I called his office this morning. Melissa was walking toward my car now, Emma still on her hip, her face a mixture of anger and something that looked like relief. You have no idea what you're messing with, Mike continued. That money was mine. From my parents' life insurance and property. Money you've been stealing for years while I watched you pretend to have cancer. Melissa reached my passenger door and knocked on the window. Up close, she looked exhausted. When I rolled it down, she leaned in. Are you Sarah? I nodded. Thank God. I've been trying to get him to tell you the truth for 2 years. Her voice was shaky but determined. Can we talk? Please? There's a lot you need to know. Through the phone, I could hear Mike screaming my name, but I hung up and unlocked the passenger door. Melissa climbed in, adjusting Emma on her lap. He told me you knew, she said immediately. About us, about everything. He said you were okay with it because you felt guilty about him giving up his life to raise you. Another lie. Even his wife had been fed lies about me. How long? I asked. Since Tyler was born. But Sarah. She looked back toward the house where Tyler was peeking through the front window. He's planning to leave. This weekend, right after some family party. He's been moving money to accounts I can't access. My phone started buzzing incessantly. Text after text from Mike. He's going to run, I said. And leave us with nothing, Melissa whispered. Just like he's been doing to you. We ended up at a coffee shop downtown, Emma coloring on napkins while Melissa and I compared notes like two detectives working the same case. What I learned made my stomach turn inside out. The cancer story started small, Melissa said, stirring her latte with shaking hands. Just something to get out of a few family obligations when Tyler was born. But then he realized how much sympathy it generated. How much help people offered. Help meaning money. Money, yes, but also emotional leverage. You'd call worried about his health, his family would send care packages, co-workers would cover his shifts. It snowballed. She paused, watching Emma scribble purple circles. I didn't know about you specifically until last year. I thought his family was just generous. I pulled out my phone and showed her the bank statements I'd photographed. $47,000. That's what I'd given him in the past 3 years alone. Melissa went pale. Jesus. Sarah, I'm so sorry. I had no idea the amounts were that, she stopped, covering her mouth. Oh God. The Burlington house down payment. He said that money came from a work bonus. $47,000 for a down payment? Part of it. He's been getting money from other family members too. His cousin Janet in Connecticut sends $200 monthly. His old army buddy Marcus helped with Tyler's daycare costs. There are probably others. I felt sick. It's not just me. He's running this scam on everyone who cares about him. And now he wants to cash out and disappear. Melissa leaned forward, lowering her voice even though the coffee shop was nearly empty. He's been selling things. His watch, some tools, even my grandmother's jewelry that I stupidly put in his name for insurance purposes. Claims he's simplifying his life for health reasons. Where's he planning to go? Costa Rica, not Mexico like those emails said. He showed me real estate listings. Beach properties for $30,000 cash. Says we can live like kings down there. She laughed bitterly. Except he's not planning to take us, is he? The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. He's going to disappear right after the party. Clean out whatever accounts he can access, grab his go bag, and vanish. Leaving me with a mortgage I can't afford and 2 kids to explain to. Melissa's voice cracked. Tyler keeps asking why Daddy's been so weird lately, why he's giving away his stuff. Emma's too young to understand, but Tyler knows something's wrong. My phone rang again. Mike, for the 10th time in the past hour. This time I answered. What? Where the hell are you? I drove to Rose's house and your car isn't there. I'm having coffee with your wife. Long pause. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Colder. More calculated than I'd ever heard it. Sarah, you need to understand something. That money you're so upset about? I earned it. 13 years I spent raising you instead of living my own life. 13 years of parent-teacher conferences and teenage drama and college applications. You think that was free? You stole my inheritance. I took what I was owed. And if you try to cause problems for me, for my family, you're going to regret it. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Back off, Sarah. Find some other family to leech onto. He hung up. Melissa was staring at me, Emma now asleep in her arms. He's never talked to you like that before, has he? Never. My hands were shaking. In 13 years, he's never. The mask is coming off, she said quietly. When cornered animals get desperate, they bite. Outside the coffee shop window, I noticed a familiar blue pickup truck parked across the street. Mike had found us. The blue pickup sat there like a predator watching prey. Through the coffee shop window, I could see Mike behind the wheel, phone pressed to his ear, his free hand gesturing wildly. Even from 50 feet away, his rage was palpable. We need to leave, I said, gathering my purse. Now. Melissa looked where I was pointing and went rigid. Oh shit. Sarah, he's been different lately. Angrier. Last week he punched a hole in our kitchen wall because Tyler spilled juice on some papers. What papers? Bank statements, I think. And some legal documents he keeps in a locked briefcase. She was already standing, shifting Emma to her shoulder. There's a back exit through the kitchen. I know the owner. We slipped out through the rear of the coffee shop, but my Honda was still parked out front. Mike would see us the moment we tried to leave. My minivan is 2 blocks away, Melissa whispered, digging through her diaper bag for keys. I parked at the elementary school when I saw your car on our street. Didn't want the neighbors asking questions. We hurried through Burlington's back alleys like fugitives, Emma mercifully staying asleep while Tyler, who Melissa had texted to stay inside with the babysitter, sent increasingly worried messages. Mom, where are you? Dad came home really mad. He's looking through all your stuff. Your stuff? I asked as we reached the minivan. Photo albums, my laptop, anything that might have evidence of his lies. She buckled Emma into her car seat with practiced efficiency. I've been documenting things for months, Sarah. Screenshots of his gambling websites, photos of cash withdrawals, recordings of phone calls where he brags to Dave about how much money he's pulling in. Recordings? Voice memos on my phone. 17 of them. Including one from last Tuesday where he laughs about your grandmother dying before she could poison you against him. Melissa's voice turned bitter. He actually celebrated her death because it meant his secrets were safe. We drove to a McDonald's parking lot 3 miles away, where Melissa showed me her phone. The recordings were devastating, Mike's real voice, unfiltered by the performance he put on for me. In one, he called me a useful idiot with a bleeding heart. In another, he discussed forging my signature on insurance documents with someone I didn't recognize. But the worst was dated last Sunday, just 2 days ago. Asterisk Dave, I'm telling you, the party is perfect timing. Sarah's organized this whole cancer-free celebration, invited the entire family. After everyone sees how grateful and close we are, if she suddenly starts making accusations, who's gonna believe her? They'll think she's having some kind of breakdown from grief over Rose. Meanwhile, I'll be on a beach in Costa Rica by Monday morning. Asterisk. He's going to make me look crazy, I whispered. Worse than that. Melissa pulled up a text thread I hadn't seen. Look at what he sent his cousin Janet yesterday. The messages made my blood freeze. Asterisk Janet, I'm worried about Sarah. She's been acting strange since Rose died, making wild accusations about money and family secrets. I think she might be having some kind of mental health crisis. Can you keep an eye on her at the party Saturday? I'm concerned she might do something to embarrass herself or hurt someone, asterisk. He's preemptively discrediting me, I said, the realization hitting like a physical blow. Setting the narrative that I'm unstable. And it gets worse. Melissa scrolled to another message thread. He's been telling people you've been overly dependent on him since your parents died, that you have abandonment issues and get paranoid when you feel like people might leave you. Emma woke up and started fussing. Melissa automatically handed her a packet of crackers while continuing to show me evidence of Mike's systematic character assassination. He'd been laying groundwork for weeks, maybe months, painting me as emotionally fragile and unreliable. Saturday's party isn't just his cover story, I realized. It's his insurance policy. If I try to expose him there, everyone will think I'm having a breakdown. And by Sunday, he'll be gone with whatever money he can grab. Melissa's phone buzzed with another worried text from Tyler. Sarah, what are we going to do? I can't let him abandon his children, but I can't stop him alone. I thought about the evidence in Grandma Rose's safety deposit box, about the recordings on Melissa's phone, about the family party where Mike expected to take his final bow as the beloved cancer survivor. We're going to beat him at his own game, I said. But first, I need to make a stop at the police station. And then we need to get Tyler somewhere safe. The police? Wire fraud, identity theft, forgery, Mike's committed multiple felonies. But I need to file the report before Saturday, before he has a chance to spin this as the ravings of a grief-stricken niece. Melissa looked at me with something like hope flickering in her eyes. You think they'll believe us? With your recordings and Grandma Rose's evidence? They'd be stupid not to. I started the engine. But Melissa, once we do this, there's no going back. Mike will know we've destroyed him. She looked back at Emma, then at her phone where Tyler's messages were getting more frantic. Asterisk Mom, please come home. Dad is scaring me, asterisk. He destroyed himself, she said quietly. We're just making sure everyone else knows it. The Burlington Police Department smelled like burnt coffee and industrial disinfectant. Detective Maria Santos looked like she'd seen every scam in the book, but even she raised an eyebrow when I laid out the evidence across her metal desk. So your uncle has been faking cancer for how long? She asked, photographing each document with methodical precision. At least 4 years that I can prove. Maybe longer. I pulled up the bank statements on my phone. He's stolen over $300,000 from my inheritance, plus whatever he's taken from other family members. Detective Santos picked up one of Melissa's printed recordings. And Mrs. Jim Patterson, you've been married to the suspect for 6 years? 7 in June, Melissa said, bouncing Emma on her knee. If we make it that long. He's planning to flee the country this weekend. These voice recordings, were they made with his knowledge? No, but Vermont is a one-party consent state, Melissa replied quickly. I checked. Smart woman. Detective Santos nodded approvingly and continued documenting everything. The process took 2 hours, during which my phone buzzed incessantly with increasingly unhinged messages from Mike. Sarah, you're making a huge mistake. Whatever lies Melissa is telling you, she's trying to break up our family. I can explain everything if you just come home. Don't do something you'll regret for the rest of your life. The last message, sent at 4:17 p.m., made my skin crawl, asterisk remember, you only have one family left. Don't throw that away over money, asterisk. Classic manipulation, Detective Santos observed, reading over my shoulder. Guilt, threats disguised as concern, isolation tactics. This guy's a textbook predator. Can you arrest him? Melissa asked. Before he runs? I'm issuing a warrant tonight. Wire fraud across state lines makes this federal. FBI will want to take point, but we'll coordinate the arrest. She handed us each a business card. Go somewhere safe until we pick him up. Does he know where either of you live? He knows where I live, I said. But Melissa. He's at our house right now, Melissa interrupted, checking her phone. Tyler texted 10 minutes ago. Mike's packing suitcases. Detective Santos was already reaching for her radio when Melissa's phone rang. Tyler, calling instead of texting. Mom? His voice was thin, scared. You need to come get me. Dad's acting really weird, and there's a man here I don't know. They keep talking about Sarah and saying bad words. Melissa put the phone on speaker. Tyler, honey, where exactly are you right now? Hiding in my closet. Dad doesn't know I can hear them from here, but they're in the kitchen talking about going to find Sarah tonight. The man said something about teaching her a lesson about family loyalty, and Dad just laughed. My blood went cold. Dave Kowalski. It had to be. Detective Santos was already on her radio, calling for backup units to 47, Birchwood Lane. Tyler, she said, leaning toward the phone, this is Detective Santos with the Burlington Police. I need you to stay exactly where you are and keep very quiet. Police officers are coming to help you, okay? Okay, Tyler whispered. But hurry. I think they're getting ready to leave, and Dad keeps saying Sarah's name in a really mean voice. The line went dead. Dispatch, I need all available units to 47, Birchwood Lane immediately, Detective Santos barked into her radio. Suspects may be armed and planning to flee. Child on premises. She turned to us, her expression grim. Ladies, I'm putting you both in protective custody until we sort this out. Mike Patterson just graduated from fraud to conspiracy and possible intent to harm. As we hurried toward the police station's back exit, my phone rang one final time. Mike's number. Against Detective Santos' sharp head shake, I answered. Uncle Mike? Sarah. His voice was deadly calm. You've made some very poor choices today. But it's not too late to fix this. Meet me at Rose's house in 1 hour, alone, and we can work this out like family. And if I don't? Then you'll learn what happens to people who bite the hand that feeds them. The line went dead, and I realized that the man who'd raised me, who'd taught me to drive and walked me down the aisle, was planning to hurt me. The uncle I'd loved my entire adult life had never existed at all. The police safe house was a cramped apartment above a Chinese restaurant, the kind of place that smelled like sesame oil and had bars on the windows. Detective Santos assured us it was temporary, just until Mike and his accomplice were in custody. That was 6 hours ago. Emma had finally fallen asleep on the lumpy couch while Melissa paced the narrow living room, checking her phone every 30 seconds for updates about Tyler. The SWAT team had found the Birchwood house empty, suitcases gone, Mike's car missing from the driveway. But Tyler was safe. They'd found him exactly where he said he'd be, hiding in his bedroom closet with a backpack full of snacks and his Nintendo Switch. Smart kid, Detective Santos had said when she called with the update. Looks like he'd been planning his own escape route. Now Tyler was with Melissa's sister in Montpelier, probably wondering why his world had exploded in the span of a single afternoon. Join the club, kid. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, the party's still on for Saturday. Wouldn't want to disappoint the family. Asterisk. I showed it to Melissa, who went pale. He's got a burner phone. Sarah, that means he's been planning this for longer than we thought. Another text. Asterisk, cousin Janet is so excited to see you. She keeps asking about your mental health. Sweet of her to be concerned. Asterisk. He's still going through with it, I realized, my stomach dropping. The cancer-free celebration. He thinks he can still pull this off. Melissa stopped pacing. What do you mean? Think about it, as far as the family knows, nothing's changed. They're all expecting to celebrate his recovery on Saturday. If he shows up acting normal, playing the grateful survivor, and I'm nowhere to be found. I scrolled through my recent calls, counting the missed ones from various relatives. He's been telling everyone I'm having a breakdown. If I don't show up to my own uncle's celebration party, that just confirms his story. But the police are looking for him, but he's clearly not at any of his known addresses. And Saturday's party isn't at his house, it's at the American Legion Hall. Public venue, dozens of witnesses to his stability and my apparent mental health crisis. My phone rang. Cousin Janet, right on cue. Sarah, honey, are you okay? Mike called and said you've been acting strange since Grandma Rose passed. He's worried sick about you. I looked at Melissa, who nodded grimly. I'm fine, Janet. Actually, I need to tell you something about Mike. Oh, sweetie, he said you might say some confusing things. Grief affects people differently, you know? Remember how Aunt Linda got after Uncle Frank died? Started accusing everyone of stealing her jewelry? Janet's voice was syrupy with false concern. Mike thinks you might need some professional help. There's no shame in it, honey. The groundwork was already laid. In Janet's mind, I was already the unstable niece making wild accusations against the saint who'd raised me. Janet, Mike doesn't have cancer. He never did. He's been stealing money from. Oh, Sarah. Janet's tone shifted to pure pity. Honey, I think you should talk to someone. Dr. Morrison confirmed Mike's diagnosis myself when I called to ask about sending flowers. This kind of denial isn't healthy. Dr. Morrison. Of course Mike would have coached him on what to say to family members who called. I'll see you Saturday, okay? Janet continued. We'll all be there to support you through this difficult time. She hung up before I could respond. Let me guess, Melissa said. You're having a grief-induced psychotic break and making up stories about poor, sick Uncle Mike? Worse. I'm the tragically deluded niece who can't accept her beloved uncle's miraculous recovery. I stood up and started pacing where Melissa had left off. He's going to that party, Melissa. He's going to play the hurt but forgiving uncle, surrounded by family who think I've lost my mind. And when I don't show up, because I'm supposedly too unstable, it just proves his point. So what do? I stopped pacing and looked at her. We crashed the party. Sarah, that's insane. He threatened you. He's got Dave Kowalski with him, and God knows who else. Walking into that party would be the last thing he expects. I pulled up the contact list on my phone. But first, I'm calling every single person on the guest list. Tonight. All 43 of them. To say what? To tell them exactly who Mike Patterson really is. Before he gets the chance to spin it his way. My finger hovered over Aunt Carol's number. Once I started making these calls, there would be no going back. Mike's reputation, his relationships, his entire carefully constructed life, all of it would implode. But then I thought about Tyler hiding in his closet, about Emma who might grow up thinking her father had simply abandoned her, about 13 years of my own life built on lies. I dialed Aunt Carol's number. Time to burn it all down. The first 3 calls went exactly as expected. Aunt Carol hung up on me after 30 seconds. Cousin David accused me of having a jealous breakdown because Mike had accomplished more in his illness than I had in my entire healthy life. Uncle Frank just kept repeating, "That's not the Mike I know," like a broken record. But call number 4 changed everything. "Sarah?" My cousin Lisa's voice was cautious. "I was wondering when you'd reach out. I've been having concerns about Mike lately." I nearly dropped the phone. "Concerns?" "Last month when I sent him that check for medical expenses? I mailed it to the address he gave me, but it came back marked undeliverable. When I asked him about it, he got really angry, said the post office had screwed up his address change paperwork because of his chemo brain." Melissa looked up from where she was feeding Emma, eyebrows raised. "Lisa, what address did he give you?" "Some place in Burlington, Vermont. 47, Birchwood Lane." I thought it was weird he'd moved without telling anyone, but he said he needed to be closer to a specialist. She paused. "Sarah, please tell me you know about his family up there." "You mean Melissa and the kids?" "Oh, thank God." When I saw those photos on his Facebook from what looked like a family vacation, but he was introducing them as friends, I started wondering. "Sarah, does Mike actually have cancer?" I closed my eyes. "No, Lisa. He doesn't." The silence stretched for 15 seconds before she whispered, "I gave him $12,000 over 2 years. I gave him $47,000. Jesus Christ." Lisa's voice cracked. "That son of a bitch." "Sarah, what are we going to do?" "We're going to stop him." "Are you coming to the party Saturday?" "I was planning to, but no." "Come anyway." "But Lisa?" "Don't let him know we talked." "Can you do that?" "Are you kidding? After what he's done? I'll win a fucking Oscar if I have to." The next 6 calls went similarly. Cousin Brad had wondered why Mike's medical bills never seemed to decrease despite his improving health. Aunt Susan had gotten suspicious when Mike claimed he couldn't attend her daughter's wedding due to chemotherapy, then posted photos from Atlantic City the same weekend. Uncle Pete had actually called Dr. Morrison's office himself after Mike requested money for a second opinion, only to be told there was no record of Mike ever being a patient there. "Morrison told me it was a privacy error," Uncle Pete said when I reached him. "But I never quite bought it. By midnight, I'd spoken to 27 family members. 18 hung up on me or dismissed my claims entirely. But nine people who'd been harboring their own doubts, their own questions about inconsistencies in Mike's stories, were ready to listen. We need to coordinate, I told Melissa as I finished the last call. The people who believe me need to be prepared for Saturday. Mike's going to walk into that party expecting to perform for a friendly audience, but instead he's going to face a room full of people who know exactly what he's done." "Sarah." Detective Santos' voice came from behind us. I hadn't heard her come in. "We need to talk." Her expression was grim. "We found Mike's car abandoned at a rest stop outside Albany. But there's something else." She held up an evidence bag containing a cell phone. "Tyler had this hidden in his backpack when we picked him up. Said his dad dropped it during the packing frenzy. The phone was still unlocked. The last text thread visible was between Mike and Dave Kowalski. Asterisk Dave, party's too risky now. Cops might be watching, asterisk. Asterisk Mike, no, it's perfect. Sarah's already destroyed her credibility with half the family. We show up, I play the heartbroken uncle, she looks even crazier, asterisk. Dave, and after? Asterisk Mike, after, we disappear forever. But first, I want to watch her burn, asterisk." Detective Santos met my eyes. "Sarah, this man isn't just planning to steal your money and run. He wants to destroy your reputation so thoroughly that even if you prove his fraud later, no one will believe you." The phone buzzed with a new message in the thread, asterisk package delivered to Legion Hall. Timer set for 8 p.m. Saturday. Should be quite the fireworks show, asterisk. My blood turned to ice. What package? Detective Santos was already on her radio, calling for the bomb squad. The Legion Hall looked innocent enough in the pre-dawn darkness, red brick, white columns, American flag hanging limp in the still air. But knowing there might be an explosive device somewhere inside made it feel like a mausoleum. Detective Santos coordinated with the bomb squad from their mobile command unit while I sat in an unmarked police car, watching through bulletproof glass as officers in protective gear methodically searched the building. It was 4:47 a.m. on Saturday, 15 hours until the party was supposed to start. Clear in the main hall, came the radio crackle at 5:23 a.m. Kitchens clean at 5:41 a.m. Storage room negative at 6:02 a.m. By 6:30, they'd found nothing. No device, no suspicious packages, no sign that anyone had been inside the building since Thursday's bingo night. Could be a psychological tactic, Detective Santos said, sliding into the passenger seat beside me. Make you afraid to show up. Force you to cancel the party and look unstable. Or he's got something else planned. I scrolled through the screenshots I'd taken of Mike's text thread with Dave. This package delivered message, what if it's not a bomb? What if it's something designed to humiliate me publicly? My phone buzzed. Another unknown number, asterisk looking forward to seeing everyone at 8 p.m. Hope you'll be there, Sarah. We have so much to catch up on. Your loving uncle asterisk. He's baiting me, I realized. He wants me there. Whatever he's planning, it only works if I show up. Detective Santos studied the message. We could arrest him the moment he steps foot in that building. But what about Dave Kowalski and whoever else is helping him? What about the other family members he's been scamming? I thought about Cousin Lisa's $12,000, about Uncle Pete's suspicions, about all the people who'd hung up on me last night. If we arrest him quietly, half the family will spend the rest of their lives thinking I was lying about everything. Sarah, this isn't about your reputation anymore. This man has escalated to making threats. Which is exactly why I need to face him publicly. I turned to look at her directly. Detective, what if we controlled the narrative? What if we let him walk into that party thinking he's in charge, but we're actually documenting everything? She raised an eyebrow. You want to wear a wire? I want to give him enough rope to hang himself. Let him perform his innocent uncle routine while we record him admitting to the fraud. Get him comfortable, let his guard down, then confront him with evidence while his entire family watches. My phone rang. Melissa, calling from the safe house where she'd spent the night with Emma. Sarah, I just got off the phone with Tyler. He remembered something about that night Mike was packing. Her voice was tight with controlled anger. There was no bomb threat. The package Mike mentioned? It's a video. What kind of video? Tyler said he saw Mike and Dave setting up a laptop and projector in our basement last week. They were editing something, but when Tyler tried to look, Mike got furious and sent him upstairs. She paused. Sarah, I think Mike's planning to show doctored footage that makes you look unstable. Maybe fake recordings of you saying things you never said, or edited versions of real conversations taken out of context. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. He's going to play victim. Show up at his cancer-free celebration, act like a grateful survivor, then reveal evidence that his beloved but mentally ill niece has been harassing him and his family. While you're standing right there, unable to defend yourself because anything you say will sound like the ravings of someone having a breakdown, Detective Santos finished grimly. I thought about the 9 family members who believed me last night, about Tyler hiding in his closet, about 13 years of manipulation and lies. Mike had spent over a decade positioning himself as my savior, my only family, the man who'd sacrificed everything for me. One final performance in front of our entire extended family would cement that narrative forever. Detective, I said slowly, what's the penalty for wire fraud across state lines? Depending on the amount? 20 years, maybe more. I smiled for the first time in 3 days. Then let's make sure we get every single confession on tape. Mike wants to put on a show tonight? I pulled up the Legion Hall's rental agreement on my phone, confirming I was still listed as the event coordinator. He's about to get the performance of his lifetime. The Legion Hall at 6 p.m. looked exactly like every family celebration I'd ever attended, folding tables covered in plastic tablecloths, a sad little banner reading, "Congratulations Mike," stretched between 2 ceiling fans, and the persistent smell of burnt coffee from the ancient percolator. What the assembled family members couldn't see were the 3 undercover officers positioned around the room, the recording equipment hidden in the flower centerpieces I'd personally delivered that afternoon, and Detective Santos monitoring everything from the kitchen. I stood near the entrance, wearing the wire they'd fitted me with 2 hours earlier, watching familiar faces filter in. Cousin Janet had brought a get-well-soon card despite this supposedly being a cancer-free celebration, the kind of detail that would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Uncle Pete kept checking his phone, probably reviewing the evidence I'd sent him that morning. Lisa arrived with her husband Tom, both of them shooting me meaningful looks while maintaining perfectly normal expressions. At 7:23 p.m., Mike walked through the front door like he owned the place. He looked exactly the same easy smile, same confident stride, same way of making everyone in the room feel like he was genuinely happy to see them. If I hadn't spent the last week learning the truth, I would have run to hug him like I had at every family gathering for the past 13 years. Sarah. His voice carried across the room, warm and delighted. Sweetheart, you look tired. This whole week has been so hard on you, hasn't it? The room went quiet. Everyone was watching us, waiting to see if I was going to have the breakdown Mike had apparently been predicting. I smiled and walked toward him, every step monitored by the officers positioned around the room. Hi, Uncle Mike. How are you feeling? Better every day, thanks to Dr. Morrison and, of course, all the support from family like you. He pulled me into what looked like a loving embrace, but his whisper in my ear was ice cold. I know exactly what you've been doing. You have no idea how badly you've miscalculated. We separated, both smiling for our audience. Aunt Carol started clapping, and soon the whole room was applauding Mike's recovery. Actually, Mike said, raising his hands to quiet the crowd, before we celebrate, I need to share something important with everyone. Sarah, honey, maybe you should sit down for this. My pulse spiked, but I kept my expression neutral. I'm fine standing, Uncle Mike. He nodded like he'd expected that response, then gestured to Dave Kowalski, who I now noticed setting up a laptop and small projector in the corner. Dave looked nothing like the criminal mastermind I'd imagined, just a middle-aged guy in a Bruins jersey who could have been anyone's harmless uncle. Over the past few months, Mike began, his voice taking on the concerned, regretful tone I'd heard him use when discussing my emotional fragility. Sarah has been struggling with some very difficult feelings about my illness and recovery. I think losing Grandma Rose so soon after my own health scare triggered something in her. The room was dead silent. I could see Janet nodding sympathetically, while Lisa's face remained carefully blank. I'd been trying to help her work through some paranoid thoughts and accusations, but yesterday she crossed a line that I can't ignore anymore. Mike's eyes found mine across the room. Sarah, I love you like a daughter. But what you did to my family, to Melissa, and my children, was unforgivable. What did I supposedly do to your family, Uncle Mike? The question came out steadier than I felt. Behind him, Dave was finishing the laptop setup, and I could see Detective Santos' silhouette in the kitchen doorway. Mike smiled sadly. Show them, Dave. The projector flickered to life, and suddenly my voice filled the room, except the words coming from the speakers were ones I'd never said in my life. The voice coming through the speakers was unmistakably mine, but the words made my blood freeze. I don't care if he really has cancer or not, Melissa. I've been supporting him for years, and I deserve something in return. If I have to lie about him threatening me to get my money back, so be it. The room erupted in shocked murmurs. I watched Aunt Carol's face crumple in disappointment while Uncle Frank shook his head in disgust. Even some of the relatives who believed me last night were starting to look uncertain. That's not, I started, but Mike held up his hand. There's more, he said quietly, and Dave clicked to the next audio file. This time it was my voice saying, Tyler's just a kid. He won't remember what really happened if we coach him right. We can make him say whatever we need him to say about Mike. My stomach dropped as I realized what Mike had done. Somehow, he'd taken fragments of our phone conversations over the years, words and phrases lifted completely out of context, and stitched them together into fabricated confessions. The technology wasn't perfect. There were subtle digital artifacts if you knew what to listen for, but to a room full of grieving family members who wanted to believe in Mike's innocence, it sounded damning. Sarah came to my house yesterday, Mike continued, his voice breaking slightly. She threatened my children. She tried to convince my wife to lie about me, to help her steal money from our family. When that didn't work, she called the police with completely fabricated accusations. Uncle Mike, I said, stepping closer to him while making sure my wire caught every word, why don't you tell everyone about the house in Burlington? About Melissa and Tyler and Emma? I saw his jaw tighten almost imperceptibly, but his expression remained sorrowful. Sarah, honey, you're doing it again. Making up stories about secret families and hidden houses. Dr. Morrison warned me this might happen, that grief can trigger elaborate delusions. Then call Dr. Morrison right now. Ask him to tell everyone here exactly what kind of cancer treatments he's been giving you. The room went dead silent. Mike's smile flickered for just a moment before returning full force. Sarah, you're clearly having an episode. Dave, maybe we should. Better yet, I interrupted, pulling out my phone, let's call Melissa. You remember Melissa, don't you? Your wife of 7 years? Mother of your 2 children? I hit dial on the number we'd prearranged. Melissa answered on the first ring, her voice carrying clearly through the hall speaker system. Hi, Sarah. Is Mike there? I need to ask him why he cleaned out Tyler and Emma's college funds yesterday before he tried to flee to Costa Rica. The effect was electric. Half the room gasped, while the other half started talking at once. Mike's face went white, but he recovered quickly. I don't know who this woman is, he said loudly, but Sarah clearly coached her. Hi, honey, Melissa's voice cut through his protests. It's me. Your wife. The one whose grandmother's jewelry you pawned last month to cover your gambling debts at Mohegan Sunday. Janet's hand flew to her mouth. Uncle Pete stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. But Mike wasn't finished. This is exactly what I was afraid of, he said, turning to address the room directly. Sarah has been planning this for weeks. She's found someone to impersonate. Michael James Patterson, Detective Santos's voice rang out as she stepped from the kitchen, badge held high. You're under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit extortion. The room exploded into chaos as 2 more officers moved in from their positions. Mike's carefully constructed performance crumbled instantly, his face twisting into something I'd never seen before, pure, venomous rage directed straight at me. You stupid, ungrateful bitch, he snarled as the handcuffs clicked around his wrists. After everything I did for you. And there it was, finally, his real voice, his true face, broadcast live to our entire family. The mask was off. The handcuffs clicked around Mike's wrists with a finality that echoed through the stunned silence of the Legion Hall. But even as Detective Santos read him his rights, Mike's eyes never left mine, burning with a hatred so pure it made my skin crawl. This isn't over, he said quietly, his voice carrying despite the chaos around us. You think you've won something? You just destroyed the only family you had left. Dave Kowalski bolted for the back exit but ran straight into Officer Martinez, who'd been positioned there since 6 p.m. The laptop crashed to the floor as Dave struggled, and I watched our evidence of Mike's deepfake audio scatter across the linoleum. Sarah. Aunt Carol's voice cut through the commotion, sharp with accusation. Even if some of what you're saying is true, did you have to humiliate him like this? In front of everyone? I stared at her, incredulous. Carol, he stole $340,000 from me. He's been lying about having cancer for 4 years. But he raised you, Uncle Frank added, his voice uncertain but still defensive. After your parents died, he gave up everything. He gave up nothing. The words exploded out of me louder than I'd intended. He had a secret wife and 2 kids the entire time. He used my grief to manipulate me into paying for his other family's house. Detective Santos appeared at my elbow. Sarah, we need you to come to the station for a formal statement. And I'm afraid there's been a development. My blood chilled. What kind of development? She glanced around the room, where half my relatives were filming everything on their phones while the other half argued loudly about Mike's guilt or innocence. We found the real package at the Burlington house. Hidden in Tyler's bedroom wall. Her voice dropped lower. It wasn't just audio files, Sarah. Mike had been recording you for months. Real footage from your apartment, your workplace, intimate conversations with friends. He was building a comprehensive psychological profile to use against you. The room tilted sideways. He was spying on me? Hidden cameras, hacked phones, intercepted mail. This goes way beyond financial fraud. She paused, watching Mike being led toward the exit. He's been planning this character assassination for over a year, maybe longer. The fake audio we heard tonight was just the beginning. As if he'd heard us talking, Mike stopped struggling against the officers and turned back toward me one final time. Tell them about the life insurance, Sarah, he called out, his voice carrying that familiar concerned uncle tone even with his hands cuffed behind his back. Tell them how you begged me to help you fake the claim after your parents died. Tell them whose idea it really was. My heart stopped. What? The car accident wasn't an accident, was it, sweetheart? You knew the brakes were bad. You knew, and you let them drive anyway because you needed the money for college. That's not, but my voice cracked, and I could see doubt creeping into Lisa's eyes, into Pete's expression. Ask her about the brake inspection report, Mike continued as the officers tried to move him forward. Ask her why she was the only beneficiary when she wasn't even 18 yet. Ask her who helped her forge the insurance paperwork. He's lying. I shouted, but Mike was smiling now, even in handcuffs. The paperwork is in Rose's safety deposit box, right where I told you to look. Same box where you found my letters. Funny how that worked out, isn't it? Detective Santos was already on her radio, but Mike's final words froze me to the bone. Every lie has to have some truth in it to work, Sarah. You taught me that. The words hit me like a physical blow. Around the Legion Hall, I could see the doubt spreading across familiar faces like ink in water. Uncle Pete was frowning, pulling out his phone. Cousin Lisa had gone very still, her eyes searching my face for something I couldn't give her. Sarah, Detective Santos said quietly, we need to go. Now. But I couldn't move. Mike's accusation hung in the air like poison gas, seeping into every corner of the room. The brake inspection report. How could he possibly know about? Wait, I whispered, my mind racing back 13 years. The insurance claim. You helped me with the paperwork because I was 17 and didn't understand any of it. Mike's smile widened even as the officers tried to drag him toward the exit. Did I help you, Sarah? Or did you help me figure out how to make sure the claim went through without too many questions? Stop talking, Detective Santos barked at him, but the damage was spreading through the room like wildfire. She came to me 3 days after the funeral, Mike continued, raising his voice so everyone could hear. crying about college tuition, about how she couldn't afford to live on her own. Asked me what would happen if the insurance company found out about the brake problem her dad had been ignoring for months. That's not what happened. But even as I said it, fragments of memory were surfacing. The conversation in Mike's kitchen, me sobbing over financial aid forms. His gentle questions about the insurance policy. His suggestion that certain details about the car's maintenance history might be unnecessarily complicating for a grieving teenager to remember. Check the claim file, Mike called out as the officers finally muscled him toward the door. Check who signed the beneficiary paperwork. Check who notarized it. The door slammed behind him, but the silence he left behind was deafening. Aunt Carol was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Sarah, please tell me he's lying. I looked around the room at faces I'd known my entire life, people who'd sent Christmas cards and birthday gifts, who'd attended my high school graduation and college send-off party. People who now looked at me like I might be a stranger. The brake problem was real, I said quietly. Dad had been putting off the repair for 2 months because money was tight. But I would never have let them drive knowing they might. My voice cracked. Mike handled all the insurance paperwork because I was a minor. I signed what he told me to sign. But did you tell him about the brakes? Lisa's voice was barely above a whisper. The memory hit me like a sledgehammer, sitting at Mike's kitchen table 3 days after the funeral, sobbing that I felt guilty because I should have insisted Dad fix the brakes, should have refused to let them take the car that night. Mike's arm around my shoulders, his voice gentle and understanding. Sarah, honey, sometimes what we know and what we can prove are 2 different things. The insurance company doesn't need to hear about every little mechanical issue, especially when you're dealing with grief. Had I told him about the brakes, or had he somehow already known? Detective Santos was studying my face with professional concern. Sarah, we need to examine your parents' claim file. Tonight. Around me, relatives were gathering their purses and coats, most of them avoiding eye contact. The cancer-free celebration had become a crime scene, and I was no longer just the victim. I was a suspect. The insurance file arrived at the police station at 11:47 p.m., delivered by a grim-faced investigator from the state attorney's office. Detective Santos spread the contents across the metal table in the interview room while I sat there with my court-appointed lawyer, watching 13 years of carefully buried memories claw their way back to the surface. The brake inspection report was dated 3 weeks before the accident. Failed inspection, signed by Dad, with a handwritten note, advised customer of critical brake line deterioration. Vehicle unsafe to drive until repairs completed. But it was the insurance claim form that made my hand shake. My signature, definitely mine, but in Mike's handwriting underneath, claimant confirms no known mechanical issues with vehicle at time of incident. Sarah, Detective Santos said gently, we need you to walk us through exactly what you remember about filing this claim. I closed my eyes, forcing myself back to that kitchen table, to 17-year-old me drowning in grief and paperwork I didn't understand. I told Mike I felt guilty about the brakes, I whispered. I said I should have made Dad fix them, should have known something like this would happen. Mike said. I stopped, the memory crystallizing with horrible clarity. He said insurance companies look for any reason not to pay, especially to young people. That mentioning the brake problem would just complicate things and delay the payout I needed for college. Did he ask you to lie? No. He asked me to focus on the facts that mattered. The other driver ran the red light. That was true. The collision caused the deaths. That was true. Everything else was just. I opened my eyes to find Detective Santos watching me with something like sympathy. He made it sound like I was protecting myself, not committing fraud. My lawyer leaned forward. Sarah, you were 17 and traumatized. Even if you had knowingly omitted information, which I'm not saying you did, you were a minor being guided by an adult with a clear conflict of interest. What conflict of interest? Detective Santos pulled out another document, one I'd never seen before. Michael Patterson was listed as your legal guardian and backup beneficiary on your parents' life insurance policies. If your claim had been denied, the money would have gone to him. The final piece clicked into place. Mike hadn't been protecting me from insurance complications, he'd been ensuring his own payout. My 17-year-old confession about the brakes wasn't a burden he'd helped me carry. It was leverage he'd been saving for exactly this moment. He recorded me, I realized. That night at his kitchen table. When I was crying about feeling guilty. He recorded me talking about the brakes, then edited it to sound like I'd intentionally hidden the information. Detective Santos nodded grimly. We found the original recording on Dave Kowalski's laptop. You're clearly distraught, clearly being guided through the conversation by Mike's questions. It's obvious you were being manipulated, not conspiring. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, *checkmate. Even if they arrest me, your reputation is finished. No one will ever trust you again. Was it worth it? M***. I stared at the message, then at the insurance file, then at the lawyers and detectives who were trying to untangle 13 years of lies. Outside the station windows, Burlington was quiet in the pre-dawn darkness. Somewhere out there, Melissa was probably awake too, wondering how to explain to Tyler and Emma that their father was a criminal. Tomorrow, our entire extended family would wake up to news reports about tonight's arrests. Mike was right about one thing, the fallout from this would follow me forever. But as I sat there in that sterile room, surrounded by evidence of his elaborate manipulation, I realized something else. I was finally free. For 13 years, I'd carried guilt about my parents' deaths, gratitude for Mike's sacrifice, and the constant fear of losing my only remaining family. All of it had been manufactured. The guilt, the gratitude, the fear, all tools he'd used to control me. Detective Santos, I said, my voice steadier than it had been in days, what happens now? Now we prosecute Michael Patterson for insurance fraud, wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy, and about 6 other felonies. He's looking at 25 years minimum. She closed the file. And Sarah? You were 17 years old when this started. You were the victim then, and you're the victim now. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Tyler, texting from his aunt's house, Sarah? Mom told me what happened. I'm sorry my dad hurt you. Are you going to be okay, I typed back, we're all going to be okay, Tyler. I promise, The skeleton in my family's closet had been Mike's cancer lie, his secret family, his systematic theft of my inheritance. But the real secret, the one I was never supposed to discover, was that the loving uncle who'd raised me had never existed at all. He'd been a predator from day one, and I'd been his longest con. But now, finally, the con was over.